Welcome to BBC4 Sky at Night. All kinds of things are happening. For example, 2 new moons of Pluto. We've known that Pluto has one big moon, Charon. Now, the Hubble Space Telescope has found 2 more. They're both tiny, one about 40 miles across, one about 20, and they're further away from Pluto than Charon is. So Pluto really is a fascinating world. Much nearer home, a new probe to Venus, the Venus Express, due to go on November the 9th. It'll get there next spring, and we'll bring you the latest news then. And now, the eclipse of the sun on October the 3rd. I hope you saw it. From England, it was partial. From Chelsea, Tim Wright took this picture. And here's one by Nick Shamonic. But the real activity came from Spain, where the eclipse was annular, and that's where Chris was.
Sunrise over Madrid, and the conditions are perfect for the solar eclipse. The planetarium is already filling up with keen astronomers and those hoping to witness one of nature's most spectacular phenomena. Here in Madrid, we won't be able to observe a total eclipse. The moon's too far away for that on this occasion, but we'll see a ring, an annular eclipse. I've never seen one before, and I can't wait. During a total eclipse, the moon happens to appear exactly the same size as the sun in the sky. So we see the outer atmosphere of the sun, the corona, prominences, and something called Baily's beads. These occur when the light passes through the valleys on the edge of the moon, and we see the last rays of light shine out through them. The moon's orbit round the Earth is slightly elliptical, so occasionally it appears smaller than the sun, causing an annular eclipse. We won't see the corona today, but we might just see Baily's beads. The local interest in the eclipse is enormous, with posters all over the city and 10,000 people expected to come to the planetarium to benefit from a live feed from the telescope and free eclipse glasses.
This is going to be really important, really nice and beautiful. I don't think what change will bring to this planet, but anyway, here we are.
Our local guide, Mark Kidger, like me, has not been lucky enough to see an eclipse. We've always been thwarted by the weather. Today, things are definitely looking more hopeful.
People were quite nervous about prospects, and that's why some people have gone to Africa, North Africa, where actually the weather is worse. It's
Really?
not as good where people have gone in Tunisia, for example, as it is here.
And how do you feel?
I can't believe it. I'm finally going to see an eclipse after 15 years
Well,
of trying.
you've got about an hour to wait.
Yeah, exactly. I just can't believe it. It's wonderful.
Away from the noise and the crowds, a little enclave of Brits has been set up. They've flown in with their telescopes and special film designed to take out over 99% of the sun's harmful rays, making the eclipse safe to observe.
I'm taking images with a digital camera at prime focus. It means I've taken the lens off the camera and the telescope has become effectively a telephoto lens.
And the image is visible on the back?
Yes, I can simply take an image, snap, there.
That's really very clear. The eclipse begins with first contact, as the moon's disk begins to cross the sun. Second contact, as the moon touches the limb of the sun, is crucially our first chance to see Baily's beads. Then, just over 4 minutes later, will come third contact, and another chance for the beads before annularity is over.
It's looking very good. We've got quite a lot of cameras set up ready to go, and we're just waiting for first contact.
Just for the moon to enter I can't see anything yet. How's it?
It's
what about the telescope?
There's nothing yet, but it's supposed to be coming in just on the top of the... Oh, I think it's there. Yes, there it is. Yeah. Definitely. First contact.
Well, the eclipse has started. We're just an hour and 15 minutes from annularity. It's going to be really exciting.
We're actually imaging the sun afocally using a simple digital camera handheld to the eyepiece.
So this is just a camera that you could buy off the shelf?
That's absolutely right, yeah.
They work perfectly.
And obviously you have a filter on the telescope.
With a nice filter. We get the telescope focused on infinity and then pre-focus the camera on infinity and just gently getting it up to the eyepiece, and you can see the image appear on the back there.
Oh wow, that's an incredibly nice image of the eclipse.
And there it is.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes the old ways are the best, aren't they?
Absolutely. I mean, this is such a simple setup here. We've got a hole in a piece of card, and we're able to project an image of the sun onto a sheet of white paper, and it's a really clean image.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see the annular stages like this.
Yes, definitely.
Of course, it's not as rushed as a total eclipse.
No.
We've got 4 minutes,
Yeah.
so... We even have natural projections. As the light from the sun passes through a tree's branches, you end up with shadows showing the shape of the eclipsed sun. With the annular phase rapidly approaching, Mark and I decide to move up to the planetarium to join the fiesta. Usually at this stage we'd expect a hushed silence, but here it's incredibly noisy, with live, specially composed music blaring out from loudspeakers which seem to be everywhere. Nevertheless, the atmosphere is electric. Well, we're nearly there, just 5 minutes from annularity. The sun is a thin slither. It's obvious with the naked eye. We can feel the light levels have begun to drop, and we're just a few minutes away from the Ring of Fire, an annular eclipse.
Well, it's a pretty slim crescent now, and you can actually see that the moon is a little bit smaller than the sun, that it's not going to be total.
Yeah, that's right. I hadn't noticed that, but it's obvious that we don't have a total eclipse.
Yeah, it's obvious that the moon is definitely smaller. The crescent is getting smaller and smaller now, quite rapidly.
And we really can't be very far now from an annular eclipse. It feels like twilight to me.
Yeah, it's getting darker quite rapidly now. Again, you can see it's darker. The sky is getting darker blue again, and the light level is really dropping quite significantly.
The colours are beginning to change as well.
Exactly.
Now, I just looked at it again, and the crescent is coming. It's no longer a crescent. It's extended round, beginning to reach round the sides of the moon. And there's cheering. I can't see it yet, Mark. What can you see?
It's not annular yet. We're still a couple of minutes away, but
people are obviously very excited.
It's definitely no longer partial eclipse.
No, we're very nearly there. I think
we're just
almost complete. I can just see there's a tiny region of the moon entering the disk now. It's very, very close.
I can see a light around it all the way. Here it goes.
There we go, and there. I saw that. We have an annular eclipse, and that is an incredible sight. The sun is a ring in the sky with the moon sitting squarely above it. It's surprisingly emotional here, despite the background noise, to see that. Mark, how do you feel?
It's fantastic. We actually did see for a few seconds the limb of the sun broke up with the Baily's beads. It's fantastic.
I'm not sure I saw those with the naked eye. I think you needed the magnification to see that.
Yeah, but it's almost dead centre now. It's fantastic.
And so, an annular eclipse above Madrid. The atmosphere is very strange with the crowds and the background noise. The light, it's not dark, but it's twilight, and the colours are wrong. There's a strange feeling in the air when you look around. You know that this isn't an ordinary Monday morning, and looking up at the sky, the sight is incredible. Everything I wanted it to be.
It's almost dead centre now. We're just about the centre of annularity. It's fantastic.
People think of annular eclipses as glorified partials, interesting but not spectacular, but this is incredible.
It's amazing, and it's the moon is very much smaller.
That's right, yes. The eclipse is beginning to end. The moon is beginning to exit the sun's surface. It's not there yet. We only have a few seconds of annularity left. And with the naked eye, it's very difficult now to trace the light.
There
it is.
Dozens of beads.
I can see that they're glittering round the edge briefly. And that's it. They're gone.
There are still beads. There are still beads there. It's wonderful. That is fantastic.
And that was the annular eclipse.
There were dozens and dozens of beads. Fantastic.
After that incredible experience, we've come back down to the quieter British quarter of Madrid to find out how our images got on. So how was it for you?
Oh, absolutely fantastic. I think the highlight of the entire event was the third contact, as the rugged limb of the moon broke up the sun's light into lots and lots of little beads. Fantastic.
I'm sure we'll see them. I can't wait to experience it again.
It was absolutely splendid.
It was a strangely emotional event, I thought.
If you look at the sun now, there's a big smile on it, just like mine.
Let's have a look. Yeah, it's a lovely image, isn't it?
Yeah, and it just says it all. Big smile.
That's true.
Brilliant.
My legs are shaking still from Well, partly from trying to do all the stuff with the camera at the same time and to enjoy it, but also just the experience and the light. The change in light was just fantastic. It was so eerie. It was really amazing.
The breakup of the limb on second contact,
as the moon went
onto the sun, that was incredible. There was a bright patch that appeared on the edge of the moon, and that just elongated through this telescope, and you could see it then join up and disappear. But the other thing which was absolutely amazing, which I wasn't really prepared for, were the shadow effects. I mean, turning around and looking at the ground, which is something you wouldn't normally do during an eclipse, look behind you. But you could see the very, very clear crescents during the crescent phase. And that was incredible.
The crowds are dispersing, the moon is leaving the sun's surface, and I now understand why eclipse chasing is addictive. So, roll on the next one.
Well, it was a great occasion. At Anandara, you don't see the corona, but it's still pretty spectacular. I wish I'd been there. With me now with Chris and Pete Lawrence. Chris, of course, it was seen not only from Spain.
That's correct. These are results from Francesco Diego, who was in Tunisia, and he was clearly away from the centre line to give himself a better chance of seeing Baily's beads.
Baily's beads, caught by the sun, shining through the lower parts of the moon's edge, and discovered actually at an annular eclipse a long time ago by Baily.
Yes, we think of them as total eclipse phenomena, but we saw them clearly here.
And welcome to the Sky at Night, Pete. But you were carrying out some very interesting work.
Yes, Patrick, I was particularly interested in taking photographs of third contact and capturing Baily's beads. And I got quite a number of images taken a few seconds apart, showing Baily's beads as they were forming and as they finally disappeared as the moon moved off the sun's limb. I was actually able to create a much more realistic profile of the edge of the moon, and I thought it would be quite interesting to try and find out which features on the edge had actually caused this profile that we're seeing here. So I was able to locate the actual specific features which have caused these features. And we move from, at the lower part of the image, we've got a number of craters which are visible, and then there's a large gap, and then we end up with some mountain ranges connected with the Mare Orientale.
Mare Orientale, which now we know to be a huge ring system going on to the far side of the moon, as seen from Earth. We can just see a bit of it here. I actually found it first way back in the 1940s.
That's incredible.
So, congratulations, Pete. Well done indeed.
Thank you, Patrick.
And now for the Venus Express, due to be launched in the very near future. The first probe to Venus for a long, long time. And Chris went to talk to some of the people involved.
Despite many missions to Venus over the last 40 years, scientists still struggle to understand how a planet so similar to Earth ended up so different. These previous missions changed our view of Venus from a benign world with oceans to our evil twin with acidic rain, high temperatures and immense pressure. Venus Express's main mission lies in studying the planet's atmosphere, which is nowhere near as simple as it once appeared.
You might think that with a very thick, dense atmosphere and a very slowly rotating planet, everything would be very quiet. It ought to perhaps be like the bottom of the ocean with just gentle currents and so on. And in fact, it's not. We see hurricane-force winds. We see giant vortices over the pole, which are like huge hurricanes, and they have a double eye for some curious reason. They don't have a single eye like hurricanes on the Earth do. We'd like to understand that. And then deeper in the atmosphere, near the surface, we see all sorts of cloud structures that are obviously weather formations. They don't resemble Earth weather formations, but there's weather on Venus deep down there that we've never seen before, and we've never been equipped to look at it properly before. So what we're going to do is look and see and then try to understand.
The strong British involvement in the mission includes two instruments which focus on the way the solar wind, that's high-energy particles thrown away from the sun, removes material from the upper layers of the planet's atmosphere. Studying this effect should reveal the details of Venus's turbulent past.
We think that when Venus was sort of much younger, it started in its formation with some water on the surface, which would have gone into the atmosphere, created what became the runaway greenhouse effect, and then this sort of hot temperature on the surface has been going for that long. And so we're seeing the effects of that in terms of pulling away with the solar wind.
One of the things we are interested in looking at is lightning. Is there lightning on Venus? This has been a subject of much debate for many years. We believe there probably is. But what we're going to do with our magnetometer is to measure the electromagnetic waves which are coming out from the atmosphere, and in combination with some of the optical remote sensing instruments, the cameras and the like, we intend to actually demonstrate once and for all that there really is lightning at Venus.
If you've only got one planet to think about, you get set in your ways. You start to think you understand things just because they're familiar, whereas you really don't understand the basic physics. And when you go to somewhere like Venus, then it stretches your thinking and you realize that you don't really understand the physics. And the greenhouse effect is a good example. We have to worry a lot about greenhouse effects on the Earth because we know the Earth's greenhouse effect is changing, and we're trying to predict what effect that's going to have on us. If we go to another planet where there's already an extreme greenhouse effect and we can't understand that in absolute detail, then that's cause for worry, and we need to get on with developing that understanding.
Well, if all goes well, the spacecraft should be on its way in just a few days, and the results should start to come back in 5 months or so. Fingers crossed.
Now, leaving Venus and turning on to the red planet Mars. We've had a very good opposition, better than the last one. Mars is still pretty close, just over 40 million miles away, and much higher up in the sky in Aries. Look in the south, high up, and there you will see it, as a bright red star, far brighter than anything else apart from the sun and the moon and Venus. It will be there for some time now, so go and have a look at it. Down here in Sochi, we held a Mars party round the dome of my 15-inch telescope in my garden, and there astronomers setting up all kinds of equipment to get the best possible views. Over to Chris.
As usual, we've gathered observers from all over the country. The weather isn't brilliant, but they were here last night and got excellent results with their own equipment and, of course, with Patrick's telescopes. These wonderful images reveal dark markings, the most obvious of which is the V-shaped Syrtis Major. As Mars rotates in just over 24 hours, so the view changes throughout the night, but there are longer-term changes on the planet's surface too. The polar caps grow and shrink with the seasons. It's summer in the south right now, and the shifting sands of Mars cover and recover the dark patches of exposed rock. In recent nights, there have been tantalising hints of a growing dust storm, and in the past, such storms have covered the planet, obscuring the whole surface with a thick haze. It's not all about imaging. Richard McKim's sketches completed at the eyepiece convey a tremendous amount of detail, just as observers have been doing for hundreds of years.
Let's go then on a lightning tour of Martian geography, or areography. And I drew this map from my own observations, and it's got south at the top. So begin then with the Syrtis Major, that triangular thing there, much the darkest feature upon Mars. And south of that, the plain of Hellas, a deep impact crater, often filled with cloud and looking rather like an extrapolar cap. Then leading away Sinus Sabius, and down there is the Meridiani Sinus, which marks the central meridian of Mars.
Indeed, and those are some of the most constant features on the planet, which don't change over many years.
That map was drawn from my observations, but you've got some very nice drawings there, Richard.
Yes, I've also got some charts which were made in the 1990s, and we can see some of the changes on Mars. If we look at this one, for example, we can see at the Syrtis Major over here. But one of the features on your map that was more prominent about 30 years ago between Solis Lacus and Mare Serenum here has completely faded out. Very changeable region of the planet.
Covered up by dust.
Indeed.
This is my first Mars observation book. Go back to 1935 when I was 12 years old.
70 years ago.
Yeah, it did. Well, here's a rather nice dust storm, and this one is 1956. Which is not much to be seen now.
Absolutely not. In fact, a few days earlier, you've got some nice drawings showing the Mare Serenum region, and while you were observing, a dust storm had begun on the other side of the planet, and in a few days' time from the United Kingdom, observers were seeing all of the features suddenly covered by dust.
Well, my observations go back to 1935. What's been happening this time, Richard?
Well, Mars has been very interesting this year. We've had observations of the planet since the spring, And at that time, at the beginning of the opposition, the South Polar Cap was still reasonably large. We've seen the gradual shrinkage of the cap. And the Martian features have been very, very clear throughout the whole of the opposition. There's been very little dust activity. And I thought that the opposition was actually going to finish without any significant dust storm activity.
Oh,
but
no
I
way.
was wrong.
No way.
I was wrong. Because I've got here a series of images, amateur images. We can see a little storm. And whether it'll become planet encircling or not, I don't know. It's very late in the season for such a storm, but it's really exciting time to be observing.
Time will tell. Meanwhile, let's go out into the garden, where we find Chris Lintott and Pete Lawrence with a very interesting experiment.
Well, those were amazing images, and hopefully we'll have lots more after tonight. But Pete, you're going to be doing something completely different.
Yes, I thought we'd have a go at measuring the distance to Mars tonight and use some of the worldwide resources, the internet and other observers, to use a technique called a parallax measurement to measure an angular shift in the position of Mars against background stars.
And we've got 2 cameras set up to show that.
That's right. We've set up one camera here. If we look through one camera at Mars against our custom star field on the dome here, you can see it's in a very specific position against the star pattern. That's what we would see from CELSI, for example. And then if we switch to the other camera we've got up here, we can see that Mars has now shifted position against the star pattern. And we have another site on the other side of the world, which is in Montevideo. So we should get quite a dramatic shift. And once we've done that and we combine these images, that's when we can get the angle and then we can measure the distance.
Well, the great moment has arrived, and all kinds of people are gathered here outside my observatory. I've got my 15-inch telescope, of course, and others have brought their own. So there's quite a party here and quite a carnival atmosphere. And Mars is up there, beautifully placed. Sometimes we can't see it. There's cloud up there at the moment. We just hope it will clear, but we're just going to be patient and wait. But of course, last night it did clear, and some people here got very good results. So can I come first to you, Keith Johnson? What telescope are you using?
I'm using a 140mm Maxsuta of Cassegrain telescope.
There's a very good result there, as you can see. There is Mars, the triangular Syrtis Major. Above it, the white plain of Hellas, and the red areas. That's a splendid picture.
Thank you.
Now for Steve Reed, all the way from North Wales.
That's right.
Delighted to see you, Steve.
Thanks very much.
I gather that picture was taken a few nights ago.
Yeah, it was taken a few nights ago.
What with?
Yeah. It was taken with a Philips 2-cam webcam. Mounted on an 8-inch reflector.
Very good indeed. Can you take us through it?
Yeah. We've got the South Pole there, the North Pole here. We've got the Syrtis Major on the edge here. So I was quite pleased to get some features like that.
It's a very good image indeed.
Yeah, quite pleased with it, yeah.
Damien, I gather you were using my 15-inch.
Yes, we managed to get some splendid images of Mars last night. And we have a colour image, an image through a red filter to reveal the dark surface features of Mars. And here we have an image through a blue filter to reveal the high atmospheric hazes and clouds on Mars.
What do you hope for tonight, assuming the clouds are going to clear?
Assuming the clouds clear, I'm hoping to get some more blue images, because we've seen a very interesting bright cloud on Mars here, which is quite unusual, so we're hoping to get some more images of that.
What about the impending dust storm?
Yes, the impending dust storm, that's just around the other side of Mars at the moment. It's actually spread to cover quite a large area now. This won't be visible until much later in the morning, so if the sky is clear, hopefully we'll get some images of it.
Now for something different, an animation. One of our most regular and welcome guests is Martin Moberly, and he's been very busy with his 10-inch reflector.
Yes, Patrick, over the past couple of months, when clouds allowed me, I've been imaging Mars and trying to, amongst other things, make a movie, which you can easily do because Mars rotates pretty slowly if you look at it at the same time each night. And you can effectively take an image every few days and stitch it together into what's called an animated GIF.
It certainly works. What's the Syrtis Major every time it comes round?
Yes, the Syrtis Major always strangely looks to me like a sort of bat clinging to a peach.
Now, sadly, it started to rain, and that, I'm afraid, means an enforced break. But we're not done yet, and I hand over to Chris for the late-night shift.
Well, it's still cloudy, but the advantage of having a large telescope like Patrick's 15-inch is that when Mars is this bright, we can actually see it through the clouds. And we've got some observations. Richard, what does it look like?
Well, it still looks a bit faint, Chris, but we can see some markings on Mars this evening with Patrick's telescope, and it's possible to make a sketch under those conditions. One of the important things about visual observation is that the eye can spot something that's unusual. You might spot a dust storm, for example, whereas somebody who's concentrating on imaging may not know the planet so well and may not recognise the value of the observation that they're making until later.
Well, it's been a slightly frustrating night here, Pete. You assured me it would be clear, and we've had a glimpses, but that's it. How's your parallax experiment?
It's not done too well tonight, I'm afraid, and the other long baseline site in Montevideo is also clouded out, I believe. So there's a cloud cover across the world, unfortunately, tonight. But if it does clear, there are two tiny moons of Mars.
Phobos and Deimos.
Phobos and Deimos. And Deimos is at almost at an elongation at the moment.
That's when it's furthest from the planet.
Furthest from the planet. So I should be able to pick those two tiny moons out.
We were about to give up, but Celsey's climate has worked its magic again, and conditions have improved enough that we've come back to the telescopes.
Mars is showing itself nicely, so I've got it centred in my telescope, and I'm using a modified webcam to capture, well, quite a large number of frames, and just like the other chaps you've been seeing this evening, I plan to pick out the best frames and stack them one on top of the other.
And of course, Mars is rotating all the time, so you
Right.
do have a limited period to get those images.
Yes, you have about 4 minutes before the features have moved enough to smear in the final image.
Oh, 3 out of 5.
You'll need it slower. How about that? That'd be really nice and slow for you to move it.
Dave, this is absolutely incredible. What are we looking at?
Well, Richard has got more knowledge of Mars than I have. This is my first year of actually imaging Mars in this kind of detail. So it's all really new to me, except for the major features, of course.
So, Richard, give us a tour.
What we can see within this image is the incredible amount of structure that we can see within the individual markings. Here's the Mare Terraneum here, lots of detail. Here's Syrtis Major, here's Iapygia here. And within this feature we can actually see one of the larger craters on Mars. We couldn't say that it was a crater from this image, but it is in fact. This lighter ring here that we can see, and there's a dark spot within it. This is the Huygens crater. We can also see within the Hellas Basin, it isn't completely featureless. We've got a bright area here. We've also got some dark albedo features in the basin. And we can see some colours. We can see the white South Polar Cap, the summer remnant there. And we can see in the north, we can see a bright bluish North Polar Hood covering the North Pole. And we can see a slightly bluish morning cloud on this side of the planet.
It's been a slightly variable night, but we did see Mars through gaps in the clouds. Pete even managed to compare his observations with those from South America, seeing the apparent shift in position and calculating the distance of Mars to within 5 million miles or so. The imagers begin their work here as they process their raw results to produce these amazing final images, in colour and showing really remarkable detail.
Well, that was a great night. And don't forget, Mars is still there, still brilliant, so go out and find it. Now, it's newsletter time. If you want it, then you can send your stamped addressed envelope to Newsletter 99, BBC Birmingham, mailbox B1 1RF. Or you can have it by email. It's just skyatnight@bbc.co.uk. When I come back next month, we'll be talking about the sizes of the stars. Until then, good night.